Welcome to Wednesday Night School, Carnivore Night School. I'm John LaSpina. We're going to go around and introduce ourselves. And our topic tonight is the ethical concerns on meat consumption as it pertains to carnivore. This is kind of a hot topic, controversial for both sides. So I'll start. I'm John LaSpina. I am the carnivore teacher on YouTube. I also post to social media sites. Different people follow me from different sites. And I talk about my carnivore way of eating and all of the wonderful ways it has healed me from the inside out, weight loss. I've shared my story a lot, and I'll probably go into it a little bit more later, but let's just do quick introductions before we get started on our topic. Christy, you want to go next? Everybody else also, let's mute our mics when we're not talking so there isn't any background noise.
Hi, everybody. My name is Christy. My channel is Meeting Wellness, and I like to say that I meet wellness one steak or picanha or whatever at a time. That's my thing. And on my channel, I do a lot of the different recipes, the things that I like to eat. I've made Rick's heart attack chicken. It's delicious. So yeah, Rick is like grateful forever to Rick for that recipe. It's amazing. I do lots of interviews, and most recently started talking about my son's mental health journey with ADHD and how carnivore has helped him with all of that. And so I am a little bit excited to get into this topic tonight because I don't think my son would be doing as well if I put him on an all-plant diet. How about you, Robin?
Hey, you guys, my name is Robin, and I am your CarnivorousGrama. My channel is at CarnivorousGrama, Grama. And why? Because my grandkids call me grandma. So my channel is very similar to Christy's. I mean, basically, she just said the whole thing about what my channel is. One of the primary things that I do is I like to interview a lot of doctors and health practitioners and really some of the OGs in the carnivore space and bring them to the community so that, you know, those voices are super important. So that is what is going on with me. And I'm also excited to talk about this topic tonight.
Funny you mentioned OG carnivore. I've been carnivore since 1983. And I'm the biggest quack in the carnivore community because I'm the only one that started the diet and protest, was not trying to get healthy, was actually looking for a heart attack. But instead, I found a lot of fun. I grew really tall, so I'm the tallest carnivore you'll ever see. And I'm still on the carnivore diet because I love it. It's not a sacrifice for me. It's not self-control. I just love it. I eat what I love. That's the story of my life. So you won't catch me eating duck food. And if you don't know me very well, you know I love ducks. I call any non-carnivore food duck food. And I will not eat anything that comes in a package and has an ingredients list. So that's my rule. I will not eat any plant material that's imported from another place. The only plant material I'll ever eat is what I can pick from my own yard or from the wild. And that's a very rare occurrence when I don't have enough meat. So, you know, my YouTube channel is not about getting healthy. It's not about, you know, being the ultimate carnivore. It's just a little bit and piece from my life, having a little fun, maybe, you know, bringing a few interesting topics to light, and that's it. So, I mean, if you're looking for the experts, I'm not the one. But if you're looking to learn and have some fun, I am the one.
Okay, my name is Peter, a.k.a. Papa Carnivore. I was recently interviewed by Carrie Mann at Homestead House. If anyone wants to see that video, go over there. There's about 400 comments on there, something like crazy like that, and met a lot of nice people and had a lot of nice conversations. I try to answer every single comment, believe it or not. It takes a long time. But I've been 19 months carnivore. Been the best thing that ever happened to me. Reverse type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, extreme, terrible chronic arthritis in my knees so bad I could barely walk across the room. I now walk 5 miles every day. Reversed all kinds of things, depression, anxiety, ADHD. So I had that, and off all medicine. So I used to take a handful of medicine every day. So the other thing is my energy levels are through the roof. I know also do not eat duck food.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Okay. So our topic tonight is the ethical concerns for meat consumption on animal-based diet. And I have a few vegan friends. I have one very good friend, and he even bills himself on Facebook as, he's vegan for the animals. And, and then he talks about his political stances and talks and posts about all the terrible things that are happening to animals in the slaughterhouses to give us the meat that we eat, and all of the other kinds of products that come from an animal. And we hear this a lot. And sometimes these vegans will jump on to our live shows, whether it's mine or somebody else's, and they'll heckle, or I see them writing comments on my YouTube page. And I can tell that they're vegans because they start this argument that goes in that direction. And it's interesting. So I want to talk about that. My first question to go around in the circle is, how do we as advocates of the carnivore diet reconcile the ethical implications of consuming animal products with concerns about animal welfare? So I'm going to copy that and paste that into the comment because it's kind of a long question. Okay, so there it is in the comment. I copied an extra O there. How do advocates of the carnivore diet reconcile the ethical implications? Now, I have seen some of the videos that they post where they're bashing the cows in the head with this big hammer, things like that. Of course, they're gonna show the videos that they show the little chicks, falling and tumbling to get, I don't know, to get the eggs or whatever. So what are your thoughts on this? I mean, I just had a wonderful bone and ribeye meal tonight, and that came from a beef cattle that was slaughtered for me. And I'm not thinking about if it suffered. Hopefully we can buy meat from sustainably farmed sources where they're not suffering, but I don't know if the meat I ate came from an animal that suffered or not. So what are your thoughts? We'll start clockwise again.
Okay, great. Start with me. That's great. Okay, I have so many thoughts, and I don't want to take all the points because I know you guys are going to be great at covering them. John, you started off talking about regeneratively raised meat, and I have started looking into more of that. So I bought a half beef from a regenerative rancher. The price on that beef was actually cheaper. It was under $6 a pound. That includes everything that I got from ground beef all the way up to those ribeyes that you were talking about. So it was a lot cheaper. The only thing that I needed to have was, a freezer big enough to hold all that meat. And so I actually visited the farm where those cows are living. And let me tell you, they are out on beautiful green pasture, just eating grass all day long. So they are not in any kind of situation where they're forced to stay indoors or be really crowded together or anything like that. And so I felt actually pretty good, even though I haven't watched all those videos that you were talking about, John, but I've obviously heard about them. And I think that keeping animals in those conditions isn't ethical, right? And isn't the right way to do it. I recently interviewed some regenerative farmers on my channel. So if you're interested in learning more from their perspective, please go check that out. But I would say that, one of the concerns is also environmental. So not only about the treatment of the animals, which in a regenerative situation, they're treated very well, and they have one bad day. But the fact that the environmental impacts, right, that people say are from, eating meat, and it's the cows and their impact on carbon and things like that. Well, it's actually regenerative agriculture can improve the soil health. It makes the whole environment better. I've watched lots of videos from these regenerative ranchers that I interviewed, and they show how their fields used to look when they bought their farm and how they're gradually improving them by grazing the ruminants on that ground, and how now it's like, it used to just be brambles and nothing could grow there. And now it's like these beautiful grassy fields. Whereas when you look at how many vegetables are grown, it's like a monocropping situation in which they're going to have to use all kinds of pesticides and synthetic fertilizers and things like that that are just going to cause, plant toxins aside, right? All that's glyphosates and things like that that are sprayed on the crops. You can't wash that stuff off, and then you are eating that. I've also heard the argument that, well, you're going to feed the cow all the human food, and you could feed the human all this food, but you're just going to give it to a cow to get one steak. Well, look into an expert named Peter Ballerstedt, and he will tell you, he has videos all over YouTube. If you look up Peter Ballerstedt, and he talks about how most of the food that we are feeding to the cattle is not actually edible by humans. So it's the parts of the plants that we can't eat at all. And it's the ruminant stomach that's able to process those things and make it available. And if you look at a book called The Vegetarian Myth by Leah Keith, she will talk about how there's nothing can live without something else having to die. And she tried it, and she was a vegan, and she thought, I'm going to grow my lettuce and I'm not going to kill anything to do it. Well, she ended up having to kill a whole bunch of slugs and all kind of things that were trying to eat her lettuce. And for what? For a piece of lettuce that is going to give you, 2 calories. So you're going to do all this stuff, and then it's impossible. And then you're not going to get the nutrition that you need, right? So many more animals die when you're doing the monocropping with all of the stuff that I talked about, the pesticides, and even just the harvesting of that crop physically kills anything that was in that field that managed to eke out a living there. But me as a carnivore, my preferred food is beef. And if it's just me, I could live on a cow for a whole year. So one animal would have to lose its life for the whole year for me to eat. Whereas if I am eating a plant-based diet, hundreds and hundreds of animals are being killed through the harvesting, through the pesticides and all of that are going on as those plants are being raised. Not to mention that it's continuing to deplete our soil. So if you listen to experts like Dr. Zoe Harcombe, she will talk about how our soil is being more and more depleted. We do not have very much topsoil left. The minerals in our soil are definitely not what they used to be. And that is all a result of this monocropping situation where you don't put those ruminant animals, and rotate the crops with the ruminants and then give the field a rest. And in that kind of cycle, like you should. And so even today's plants don't have as many nutrients as they used to, years ago. So for me, I know that animal foods have way more bioavailable nutrients, which I know all of you know about. I'm not going to get into the list. Somebody else can cover that. But all those nutrients in those animals are so much more bioavailable. It's so much more, bang for my buck, if you will, when I eat my 1 cow a year, than having to eat all this, let's say, spinach to try to get my iron, while I'm also getting all the oxalates. John knows he had a kidney stone from all the oxalates from that spinach he was eating. But I'm not actually getting the iron that is, advertised in that spinach, because it's non-heme iron and it's not really absorbable. Not to mention all the nutrients, because our soil is so depleted, aren't even in those plants anyway. So I would rather eat the food that I know is going to give me the nutrients. Now, how do I know this? Well, N equals 1 for me, right? So when I went carnivore in June of 2023, I started off, standard American diet before that, my whole life, feeling horrible, health declining and continuing to decline, but just thinking, oh, it's because I'm, going into my 30s and 40s, and that just happens to everybody, right? Then I went keto, lost some weight, but didn't notice any other health improvements until I went carnivore. And then my joints stopped aching, my sleep improved, my skin clarity improved, my mental health improved, and a laundry list of other things. My energy, right? All of these things improved. And so it's like, when I took out the last of the plants is when I started feeling the most healthy that I've ever felt. And so I think that the health of humans is very ethical and important to consider. And I know that my health has greatly improved by eating a meat-based way of eating. Whereas before, when I was eating many more plants, my health was continuing to decline. So I'm going to stop there because I don't want to take all the time. I'm going to pass it over to my friend Robin. Robin, what do you think about this?
I think Christy should have been made to go last. Great job, Christy. Oh my God. You said so many things, but a couple of things that really stood out to me and made me think were around when you think about the ethical implications for animal welfare. You talked about how when they are, processing the ground in order to plant, as well as during the harvests, how many animals have to be killed. Animals and other life forms, like slugs, have to be killed for those gardens. I'm calling them gardens because like fields to be actually planted and harvested. Every year at my church, we have a community garden. And I'll say every year, but every 7th year, that ground has to lay fallow because you have to allow for the ground to regenerate for a year. And that's more of a biblical thing. But, when you talk about the ground is like the nutrients have been stripped out of the ground from over processing, over planting, over, treating, and all of the different things, all the chemicals that are being put into the ground so that we can have plants to eat. So there's tons and tons of animals that are killed in that way. But then I did think about one of the things that popped in my head was around like the slaughterhouse and how these animals in large number are taken into a slaughterhouse and slaughtered in an inhumane manner. And so how important it is for us to know, like, when we can. So I don't want to judge anybody who's going to Walmart and getting their meat because that's better than eating plants, to be honest. But if you're able to know what is happening with your meat, so I go to a farm, just like Christy was mentioning, I go to a farmer and I get my cow, my whole family, we pool together our funds and we go and we get a portion of a cow. So we can go out there, we see the animals, we see the pasture that they're being grazed on. We can go in and tour and see the facilities where they're keeping the animals, and it's both beef and sheep. And so, and how are those animals being dispatched or, processed? And so when I looked up about the slaughterhouse, and I think that I have heard that if an animal, if you talk to deer hunters, they'll say if the animal is like startled or afraid when it's killed, it releases chemicals into the meat. And so we know that is problematic. So they try to dispatch that animal without scaring or startling it. And so that's same thing that we want to happen with the animals that we are getting and consuming for food. But when we're going into the grocery store, we really don't know the emotions of the animal prior to the fact that it was slaughtered for human consumption. So as Christy said, when you think about the millions and millions of animals that are being killed to plant a field, as opposed to the one animal that it would take to feed one person for a year, that's significant. And so, when I think about the animal welfare, it brings me to things like, halal meat. There's a few stores in my area that sells the meat that's halal, that's been prayed over and been dispatched humanely. So those are probably considerations that we need to think about if we're able to. But what I will say is that, like, if you're trying to get that grass-fed pastured animal, on the whole, it's going to cost more. Like it's going to cost, the last time I bought a cow, it was really cheap per pound. Like it was probably less than $4 a pound in my area. However, you're getting ground beef for $4 a pound. You're getting bones for $4 a pound. You're getting fat for $4 a pound. You know, you're getting all of the animal for that same price per pound. Whereas when you're going into the store, you're getting it, you know, a variety of different prices per pound for the different cuts of meat. So, and when you look at the amount, like let's say that all you eat is ribeye, then you're not getting that much ribeye in a portion of a cow, or even in a full cow. You're not going to get enough to last you a year or something like that. So, you know, it just depends on that. But I'm thinking about, you know, regenerative farming. We want to try to support those farmers that are, support your local farmer. If you're able to, you know, go out there and get your meat from somebody that you know, that you can go out there and you meet the person and you see how they care for their animals. And that, you know, to me addresses that for myself, the idea of the welfare of the animal. I want to say this because I recently did a study on the biblical implications of the carnivore diet. And what did the Bible have to say about food? And in Genesis is when God told us that we could, right after the flood, is when we were allowed to eat meat. And so we've been eating meat, you know, if you're a Christian and you're a Bible believer, we've been eating meat from the very beginning of time. And it is what has allowed us to be what we are today. So I think that for human welfare, for human well-being, it is very important that we eat the food that is meant for our bodies, and that is meat. So I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Well, you know, I always say that if Adam and Eve were carnivore, they would have eaten the snake instead of the fruit, and we wouldn't be in the mess that we're in. So that's one thing. But if you're thinking about ethical ideas, you know, I got a couple of vegan friends, and I hear this all the time. It's just constantly, oh, the poor animals and this and that. How can you eat those lizards and ducks and chickens from the parking lot and all that other stuff? I said, well, you know what? If I don't eat them, there's always the raccoons, there's the hawks, there's all the other predators out there. And you have to realize that a wild animal isn't going to be able to relax. This is not a cow that's out on a pasture. Basically, a cow on a pasture has very little to worry about because usually they're too big for most of the local predators. If there are larger predators, the farmers will shoot them or they'll put them inside a building. If you raise chickens, you know what happens if you leave the chickens running around. They're going to get taken out by some of the local wildlife, the foxes, the raccoons, or whatever you have around, bobcats or whatever is roaming around. So when it comes down to ethics, all animals are going to end up dead one way or the other. They're either going to die from disease, they're going to become somebody else's food, or they're going to get old and die. So it's only a matter of timing. So if you're raising animals, you know, you may have a pet, like I have a pet cat. They can last anywhere from 16 to 21 years. You could have a cow as a pet. You might like that cow so much, you keep it around. It may last 15 years or more. But one of these days, it's just going to get old and die. But humans have been raising animals for thousands of years. And you can see that they've also been hunting for thousands of years. It's just something that we do. We have to do it to survive. If we try to eat plants and just plants, we're going to be limited in what we can do. Because the whole world is basically, it's a fight against entropy. And we need to have good quality sources of reduced entropy, which is energy, food, materials, the things that we need to keep our system going. You know that if you don't put gas in your car, it won't go very far. If you don't change the oil, you don't take care of it, it's going to turn into a giant rust bucket, a piece of scrap metal. Just leave something sitting around for a while and see what happens. So again, we have to raise these animals, And it's sort of like a deal, because if we didn't raise cattle, they wouldn't exist. There's no such thing as a wild cow. There are feral cattle that run around, but they don't last. I mean, they can live in certain places. They can live in areas that don't have predators. But if you turn them loose in Africa, they wouldn't have a chance because they can't run fast enough. They're not like the gazelles. I mean, even the deer that we have in this part of the world, they can jump, they can run. Cows can't do that. So if you have large predators like for example, a cougar, the cougar will take out the cattle one by one until there's none left. So the ethics of raising animals is basically this. We have sort of bred and manipulated these animals to be enjoyable for us to eat. And in exchange for keeping them, we're eating them. So if you think about it, of all the animals that are going extinct, and there are many species that have gone extinct because something happened, humans hunted them into extinction, or just environmental changes or whatever, and they're gone. Maybe they had a disease that wiped them out. But you don't see any danger of cattle or sheep or chickens or ducks or any of these animals ever going extinct, because people are constantly raising them and they're constantly watching to see which ones are sick, any problems that they're having. And again, it's just sort of a trade-off. We trade our time to work so that we can get paid, so that we can survive. And the animals, well, they're trading their freedom for a certain amount of security, steady amount of food, treatment if they get injured, because animals in the wild get injured. And most of the time, they don't last because they're injured to the point where they can't move around. They become easy prey for the predators. If they get a disease, they don't get any treatment. They don't have any antibiotics. There's no surgery. So basically, that's the end of them. So again, ethics-wise, we're sort of trading. So in other words, you start with a natural environment where you have animals living, kill or be killed, that kind of thing. Then you have the ranch, where you have the farmer and you have the cattle or whatever other animals he's raising. You might have somebody in their home raising a flock of chickens, and they're going to eat the eggs, and eventually they're going to kill the chickens. But in exchange for that, they're getting protected from all the predators that would love to eat them right now. And if you've ever had raccoons take out your flock, it doesn't take long before they're all wiped out. So, but again, that's the ethical concern. So when I tell my vegan friends about that, they look at me funny. And I said, basically, to be a vegan, you need to destroy all animals. Every animal has to be killed, because otherwise, how are the predators going to survive? The wildcats, the birds of prey. If they have nothing to eat, they'll die. And then if there's no predators, what's going to happen to all the prey animals? They're going to multiply and multiply and multiply and eat everything in sight. Then they're going to starve and die of disease. So either way, you're talking about ethics. What ethics? Are you going to go and try to manage everything so you can have cows dancing around and chickens, doing their thing? Well, what happens when they keep multiplying? Chickens love to multiply. Look at rabbits, how much they multiply. What's going to happen? You're going to take them and get them fixed like we do with the cats? Well, you could do that, but then they're all going to go extinct. So this is a thing that no vegan has ever been able to answer to me when it comes to ethics. What are we going to do if we break the natural system that's out there? The system of prey and predator. It's like insects and natural enemies. If we break that system, we're going to have a total environmental collapse. And this is the thing that no vegan has ever been able to answer to me.
Okay, so I'm going to steal from Dr. Berry a couple of things that I've learned. The first thing is, whenever I come into contact with the vegans or people who are trying to, criticize our way of eating or our way of life, is that humans have been eating fatty meat and eggs for exactly the same amount of time as we've been breathing air and drinking water. Humans. So going back, at least a million years, or anywhere from 350,000 to possibly as many as 2 million years ago, the human species has been a super carnivore, eating pretty much only fatty meat, animals, eggs, whatever, fish. But we were not eating plants. Yes, we might forage for some tubers or some things like that, especially in times of where they could not hunt or they could not find an animal. Yes, but that was, as Rick calls it, duck food. Well, back then they called it starvation food. So this is not something that they searched for as a primary food source. So what you ended up with is you had animals out there that were plentiful. The humans, just like Rick was saying, would keep the animals in check by hunting them. And you had a balanced ecosystem, completely balanced. You had beautiful fields. You had beautiful forests. You had tons of birds and squirrels and rabbits and foxes and all the wonderful animals. You had billions of insects out there multiplying, and all the chickens and all the birds eating the insects. You see them poking their beaks into the ground. What do you think they're looking for? Those are grubs and insects, and they're plentiful. And the soil was filled with nutrients. And, the animals, when they would eat that grass or they'd eat that plant matter, they had tons of nutrition. So when the humans would eat those animals, they were getting such incredible nutrition from those wild animals. Well, let's take a look at what happened 12,000 years ago. What happened? It was the agricultural dawn of agriculture. It's somewhere around 10 to 12,000 years ago. And, back then, it maybe wasn't so bad. You had some farms, you had some fields, but it was very small. The ground was still fairly good. You did have them, Robin, leaving the fields fallow, and they were more responsible back then, and they weren't using glyphosate and chemicals. And okay, let's fast forward to today. They're clearing enormous tracts of industrial farmland, killing everything on those millions of acres of ground. Think of the absolute murder, and I do mean murder, of everything, every squirrel, every rabbit, every fox, every deer, every baby deer, everything that existed in that space, all the birds, they're gone. And what do they do? They farm those fields. They are spraying, as Christy was saying, the chemicals. They're using, really, it's petroleum-based fertilizer that they're using. It's absolute. They're absolutely killing the soil. So the amount of animals that are killed is in the hundreds of millions, if not more. For what? For what? So, if you want to talk about death, are tens of millions of squirrels and rabbits and bunnies, do they not count? Does that not count? What about the billions, Rick, of insects that are gone because that ground has been chemically sprayed? Well, then what happens to those birds that rely on those bugs and the grubs? Well, they're gone. And then if the birds go away and the squirrels go away, the larger animals that feast on them. So I just, when I look at my way of eating, I only eat 2 meals a day. And I have maybe 2 pieces of steak, or I'll have a couple of eggs, whatever. How many meals a day are these vegans eating? How much material and poundage of food are they? Think about us. How much did we used to eat? I used to eat tons of vegetables and fruits and all the grains. And if you look at how much food is consumed and how much land and how many animals have to be killed for a plant-based diet, compared to me having 4 eggs, 4 pieces of bacon, and 1 steak in a day. Come on. So that's how I rationalize it. Now, I don't have the grass-fed food. I don't have that. I don't afford that. But the way I rationalize it is I eat so little that, yes, if I do have a steak or ground beef and it's not, grass-fed, okay, I'm still doing much better to the earth than what the plant-based people are doing.
Wow. Everybody contributed some really good points. I wrote a few of them down, so I wanted to summarize them, things that just stuck in my head. It's going to take these animals are going to die anyway. And as Rick said, we're giving them a great life. We're giving them a great life. They're trading freedom for security, the animals, and they have, as Christy said, they have one bad day. And every animal, including us, we have one bad day, and that's the day that we die. Another point that I saw, animals are killed in the field, rabbits and bunnies and mice and all the little creatures that get caught in the turbines or killed with the glyphosate and all of the sprays. Millions and millions of insects. These things are part of the circle, the chain. The food chain gets interrupted if these are taken out too much at one point. It disrupts the chain, and there's an imbalance, and then there's a problem. One whole species. I mean, we have animals that have completely gone extinct because the food chain was disrupted in some way, and they're gone for whatever reason. So we are ethically, I'm feeling a lot better because I'm realizing, after hearing some points that I never even thought about, that these animals they're living a pretty good life, most of them, and they have that one bad day. Let's see what else. Biblical. I like what Robin talked about with the biblical reasons. We've been eating meat since the beginning of time. We are supposed to hunt. All animals are getting food somewhere, and many of them are carnivores, and they're hunting and killing their prey. We see it on the Nature Channel on television. We see it happening, and it's not pretty. Some of these, they're running through the fields in Africa on the plains, and they're being slaughtered by an animal, chasing after it. It's the world, it's nature. And we're actually doing it more humanely and more ethically than the wild is doing it to their prey. So if you think about that. So I really appreciate everybody sharing. Dr. Nelson just joined us. Thank you so much for coming. As you can see, our topic is ethical concerns on meat consumption. What are your thoughts? The original question, let me scroll back up. I put it in there. Let's see, where did I put it? How do advocates of the carnivore diet reconcile the ethical implications of consuming animal products with concerns about animal welfare? Do you have anything you'd like to share about that, Dr. Nelson?
Yes. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry I'm late. I got home late from work, and then I thought it was at 8, not at 7. But I mean, I would have been no more than 10 minutes earlier. I
That's
just
okay.
got home from work. Well, I have never bought the story of the cows are killing the world. I mean, when you really think about it and you're not fanatical about what you've been taught, and you compare the different stories, it never made sense to me that first of all, we've been eating for thousands of years, whether you believe the biblical story or evolution, and someone mentioned about that. No, I don't know the details, but I do believe in the Bible. So thousands of years or millions of years, we've been eating meat, a lot of red meat, for a long time, and all of a sudden, the past 100 to 150 years, it's causing major diseases. It so happens that the chronic non-communicable diseases started to increase exponentially when we started making food. Humans can never make as good a food as God can. So that's definitely Cain and Abel. Well, first of all, the first sacrifice was God. If you're following the biblical story, and if you don't, just put that on hold for a second. But Cain and Abel, after, when the big event happened, when Cain killed Abel, was after God asked them for sacrifice. And what were the professions of Cain and Abel? One was a shepherd, and one was an agriculture. All right, one was farming, the other one. So from the beginning, why would Adam and Eve and Cain and Abel, which by that time had multiple children, and they, you know, Cain and Abel had no choice but marry their sisters because that's the only thing that was available. But one was a shepherd. Why? If they didn't eat meat, why would they need to keep sheep or goats or anything else that may have had? There's only one answer because they were not raising those animals just for fun. They used their, I forget what the word is in English, their wool, right? And they ate them and they drank the milk. So about contamination, when you really even look at pictures or read the story about monocropping and how it happens and what they have to do to the land to get it ready to raise, one crop of corn or whatever they are growing, and you have to destroy a complete ecosystem. I fortunately or unfortunately, I never bought that story, so I I think those are sort of fake news. And weather is always changing. I once went to a museum in Bradenton, Florida, that had, now nobody was around 5,000 years. None of us were around 5,000 or 500,000 years ago, right? So we don't know. When we do estimates though of temperature, they had an exhibit of the temperature of the Earth over thousands of years, and you always saw this cyclic up and down, and that was the estimate. So we're always changing. We're either on the way down or on the way up, always changing. We can never compare to thousands of years ago because nobody kept temperature, but scientists have come up with estimates, which is the only thing we have to go on. And anyways, uh, same with the hurricane story. Hurricanes, by all metrics, have not changed over the past 100 years. It's just we have lived through very bad hurricanes, especially if you live in Florida or like me from the Caribbean. Uh, but the most devastating hurricane in Puerto Rico, for example, was not Maria in 2017. It was uh, what in Florida they call the Okeechobee hurricane. In Puerto Rico they called it San Felipe, and it was in 1928. Why do I know that? Because my grandmother was pregnant with my father, and she delivered just a week or two after the hurricane. So, by the way, it's the only accurate date of birth I know among my aunts and uncle. Everybody else has the wrong date of birth on their certificates, but she remembered that she had him. So sometimes we have to be careful about these stories about the contamination and the farting of the cows. And uh, if you try to be really fair, you have to look at all sides of the argument, and then you know you believe whatever you believe after that. But uh, I don't think men can make the best food in substitution of what's natural, whether you believe God created the animals or we are a product of evolution. It is probably a better quality food than Impossible Burgers, which I think it's impossible to be as healthy as a piece of steak. So yesterday I had some lamb steaks, chuck steaks. It said lamb shoulder in the label, but the same as they look the same as the beef chuck steaks. I don't think there's anything that you can make as man can make to make it number one, taste that good, and number two, be as nutritious, because you have to put a lot of fake stuff in it.
You're absolutely right. I think that God in nature has created perfect food, especially with the ruminant animals. They've got the 4-chamber stomach, and the rumen, it filters out the toxins. It gives us a healthy fat and protein content in the meat. And the bioavailability of protein and fatty acids is close to 100% versus any protein or any vitamins and minerals you're going to get from plants. I've heard is as low as 9 to 15% bioavailability because of all of the fiber and all of the anti-nutrients, which either block absorption or they do harmful things to the body. So vegans, yeah, they have to eat these plants multiple times to get an adequate amount of their vitamins and minerals. And I don't even think they're getting enough, because if you look at a lot of people who have been vegan for a long time, they don't look healthy if they're going on just a vegan diet. Yeah.
And that word you mentioned is very, very important. Today I used it at least twice, bioavailability.
Yeah.
Because, but I was told that beans have a lot of protein. Well, actually, they do have some protein in bigger amounts than many other vegetables.
Mm-hmm.
But in proportion to the starches, there's 3 to 4 times starches in beans to the amount of protein.
And the lectins, yeah.
And then that protein is not as bioavailable as meat.
Correct.
And
yeah,
I don't have a problem with you trying to be vegan, vegetarian, Mediterranean, whatever you want to eat, as long as you're healthy. If you're not healthy, you need to change whatever you're doing. But I belong to a church, and I never like to mention this because we get beat up. I grew up mostly vegetarian. We did eat some meat. And I ate a lot of the processed veggie meats. I believe processed food, throughout my lifetime is what gave me bladder cancer.
Oh, wow.
Okay. Number one cause for bladder cancer is smoking. Guess what? I never smoked. Okay. I've eaten healthy most of my life, whatever that definition was at the time. But you look at any vegetable meat, veggie meat, imitation meat, whatever you want to call it, you look at the list of ingredients, most of them you probably can't pronounce, and everything is fake, full of seed oils, because that's the only source of fat that you can put on those. And John knows very well about all the different stories of the seed oils. My favorite is always canola. So I call it mother oil, but there's no way to make. If you want to eat something that looks like beef so much, eat the meat, the real thing.
I don't know if you guys have ever heard this, that humans are the only animal that's smart enough to make their own food, but dumb enough to eat it.
Yeah.
We are at the top, the pinnacle of the food chain. It's amazing that we don't know how to eat. We are counting calories. We are trying to learn and educate, and there's all these diets out there and programs and controversies, and there's my channel and somebody else's channel. What is the correct diet?
And sometimes
why do we do this?
sometimes we're trying to say that we're supposed to be eating only plants, but when we compare, for example, to the 4-chamber stomachs, the ruminants,
mm-hmm.
They have a wonderful processing of food. And by the way, what they absorb themselves is protein and fat from the their gut after it's been processed. Whatever's cellulose and plant fiber, they go through this whole process, and what they absorb is protein and fat. And then we try to say that we should be eating like the gorillas. Well, our intestines are different. Our pH in the stomach is different. We have a pH that is very, very low. Okay. Closer to, I forget
Vulture.
how to say, I know the name in Spanish right now, buitre. The buzzards,
The vulture. Yeah.
the vultures,
Yes.
yes. So we have a pH closer to those than we do to when you compare to gorillas or cows.
Definitely. I wanted to bring that up, and you just did, about the way our body is made compared to people, animals that are made, they're genetically made to eat plants. We are genetically made to eat meat. The length of our colon, the length of our intestines, our stomach acid, the shape of our teeth, the position of our eyes, all these things, that arguments for why we are mostly carnivore. I hear that we are what is the phrase? Not omnivore, but obligate carnivores, where we can have, yes, for survival, if there's nothing else, we can eat from the plant kingdom to survive. And we fatten up when we do. And when we go back to eating meats, we're healthy, because the bioavailability is just amazing. And the lack of anti-nutrients in animal meat is just wonderful. I just watched this wonderful lady on Dr. Anthony Chaffee, an interview with her. I can't remember her name off the top of my head. She had a million ailments, just so many problems from the time she was a little girl until she finally eliminated all of the plants. And then everything went away. All the mental problems, all of the schizophrenia, all of the physical problems, they all disappeared, because her particular body chemistry was extremely susceptible to the lectins and the phytates and the oxalates and all the stuff that's in plants. And when she eliminated all of that, finally, she was hospitalized a bunch of times. Everything started clearing up, and she started putting on weight and getting healthy. She's 50 years old now. It took her, I don't know, I think she started this 8 years ago. It took her that long to finally get healed. If you go to Dr. Anthony Chaffee's channel and look at the most recent interview, you'll see who this lady is. She's amazing. She really
John, I saw that interview.
Yeah.
It's really amazing. I actually saw her interviewed before by somebody else.
I did too. Yeah.
She suffered from like unbelievable mental disorder, like schizophrenia, depression, anxiety, like way worse than I had.
Yeah.
And I was bipolar depression and anxiety, ADHD, but she was like hospitalized.
Oh, terribly, terribly.
Like, horrific. And if you watch her today, you wouldn't know that she wasn't perfectly 1000% normal, no medicine, living wonderfully. And the only change was is now eating meat. She's not eating the plants.
Her name is Valerie Ann Smith. I looked her up. Valerie Ann Smith, if you want to Google her.
Yeah.
What an amazing story.
So it just goes to show you that what happened to me, look what happened to her.
Yeah.
And really all it was changing the diet.
Absolutely. All right, we're getting at the top of the hour, and I want to go around and give everybody an opportunity to tell us where we can find you on the internet, on YouTube. Christy, would you please start?
Absolutely. So my channel is Meeting Wellness, and that's where you can find me most of the time. I've got a couple cool interviews coming up since I'm a teacher, and we're having Thanksgiving break next week. So stay tuned for those. You can also find me on my second channel, Lioness Lifestyle. I do a show with a couple of other ladies. We go live every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Pacific or 8 p.m. Eastern. Our next guest coming up this Tuesday is the fantastic and fabulous Courtney Luna. So you do not want to miss that. Her carnivore cookbook just recently came out. We thought it would be fun to have her on the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. So those are the two places you can find me online. I would love to see you over there in the comments.
All right. I am at CarnivorousGrama, GRAMA, on YouTube and TikTok and Instagram. Robin Heron on Facebook. I don't think I changed it to CarnivorousGrama yet on Facebook. I do most everything on YouTube though. So I do have a new show that is every Monday night at 7:00. It's called Hey Sister Girl. And so that's a show by women for women. So guys, you can come on and join us too, but it's primarily geared at women. So yeah, find me on all those social media platforms.
Well, if you haven't seen my channel, it's Charger Mopar. I've been on YouTube since 2007. Not really a carnivore channel, but I do post videos on different things that I'm doing. And again, if you're going to look at my channel, you probably learn something because it's a lot of different things. I even do gardening. I have videos on composting, and I have videos on how to catch and cook iguana. I had a duck video, but they took that off. But yeah, I don't do social media otherwise. So the only place you can find me is on YouTube, and you'll always find me in the best collaborations like you see here.
Okay, you can find me at Papa Carnivore 15. I don't have videos there, but you can go there, and from that page you can see a lot of my comments from other people's channels. But I'm out there. I'm commenting, and I'm on live streams, and I'm on shows like this. So you'll find me. I'm pretty much everywhere. Maybe not as much as my boy Rick over there, but getting close.
At the real Dr. Nelson in YouTube and Metabolically Healthy Again on Facebook. I mostly post or repost. I don't have much video content, but you can find me in those. I will have a question for the Florida guys here. Are you all going to be in Fort Lauderdale next Wednesday? Next
I
Friday?
haven't heard anything about this one in Fort Lauderdale. The guy that when we went to the last one, he sent me an email saying the next one's going to be in Fort Lauderdale.
Work Friday, unfortunately.
So I haven't received an email from him yet. Can you?
So Dr. Lisa Wiederman is the one organizing it.
All right.
She's Carnivore Doctor on YouTube. It's going to be in Fogo de Chao in Fort Lauderdale. And she prefers if you kind of contact her before going there. But if you go there, you can go. It's a public place. Dr. Kills is going to be there. I'm going to be there. So John, I'll email you the information if you want.
Thank you.
Rick, are you going to be there?
I mean, I don't think I could make it there in my car, and I probably don't even have the money for it. Ouch. Ow.
Okay.
Ow, ow. I'm getting bit.
Want to take a picture with you. I'm 5'6". You're 6'6".
I've met everybody on this screen here except Rick, and he's right down the road from me. We got to meet sometimes, Rick. All right, my friends, thank you so much for coming. Everybody, I know I learned a few new things. And that's what I love about these wonderful things. Community is so important. If you can't meet people in person, you can, with wonderful technology and even the cheapest computer like Rick, you can get on and meet people and feel supported and validated and learn a lot of new things about your healthy way of eating. So I want to thank everybody again for coming. Have a great day. I'm going to end my show.